So our first one up, when we talk about angle measures, so how much degrees they are, we always write the little m in front of the little angle sign, what angle we're talking about, and then how much it's going to be. So for this one, the measure of angle A is going to be 2 times 58. What is 2 times 58? 116? 116 degrees. Our next one, we're talking about the measure of angle B. The measure of angle B is half of 130. I struggled with 130. What's half of 130? 65 degrees. Okay, after that, we see here half of measure of angle C is 26. How do I find the measure of angle C? So we have to do the inverse of this, which is multiplying by 2 on both sides. So we're going to multiply this side by 2, multiply this side by 2. The measure of angle C equals 52 degrees. The next half of this is isolating variables. So we're solving for x. So in the first part here, what is my first step to get x by itself? We're going to add 9. Nice job, you guys. So we end up with, I'm going to draw it here. Yep, equals 18. The next step, divide by 2, x equals, nice job. Okay, next one up is a little different because now our like terms are the thing that has a variable. How do we get those two together? Yep, Raj. Subtract 7x, and then we're left with x equals 15. So here we are doing section 2.2, angle bisectors. And our objective today is short and sweet, to bisect an angle. Yesterday we talked about bisecting segments. When you bisected a segment, what did it do? We had a segment and we bisected it. Yep, cut it in half, split into 2 equal congruent parts. So an angle bisector is a ray that divides an angle into 2 congruent parts, or 2 congruent angles, and you see that drawn by the ray in red. So our question reads, ray NQ bisects angle MNP, and measure of angle MNP is 74 degrees. Find the measure of MNQ and the measure of PNQ. What types of angles are these and why? So our first step is we're going to draw the picture just like we did on the segments, and we showed that things were congruent by tick marks. We do something very similar with angles. When we do it with angles, I'll write in purple. We mark 2 little arcs on the parts that are congruent. If you only have one thing that you're showing that is congruent, you can do it with just one arc. Sometimes if we have multiple angles that we're showing are congruent, we show them with like one pair with 1 arc, some pairs with 2 arcs, sometimes with a tick mark. For the sake of making sure we know which ones we're doing, I'm going to put a little tick mark in them. This shows that these 2 arcs are congruent, so they're going to have the same angle measure. We also know the measure of MNP. So I'm going to show that by drawing a big arc across it, and then normally you'd write it on the inside, but I'm going to draw a little arrow and write 74 right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is a lot of steps. We're going to do it multiple times so that you can see what's happening. So just like the segment addition postulate, we have to say the total angle is equal to the sum of its parts. So what's my big angle here? 74. So it's 74, but we're going to use those symbols first. So we're going to use the measure of angle MNP. So my total big angle, angle MNP, equals the sum of its 2 smaller angles. So again, the measure of angle, what are my 2 smaller angles? Yep, M and Q. Plus the measure of angle P and Q. So things to remember when we write angles out, the vertex always has to be in the middle. So N has to stay in the middle of all of them because it's the vertex of all the angles. And remember when you write it, we're talking about angle measures here. So you always have to have the little m, angle sign, angle that you're talking about. That's always your first step. Your second step is to state what you knew or what you know. So when you go to this, we talk about it being bisected. So with it being bisected, which angles are congruent? The 2 smaller ones, yep. So that's this second part here. We're going to rewrite this, but now without the plus sign, we're going to make it an equal sign. So the measure of angle M and Q equals the measure of angle P and Q. And that's because we know it's been bisected. So our first line is the sum of the parts equal the whole. The second line are the 2 parts equal each other. The third step I'll give you a second to write this. So our next spot of this is we want to get them in like terms. So we want to talk about the same angle. Well, since they're both equal, it doesn't matter which angle you like better. We're just going to write that same angle twice. We're going to substitute in. So do you like MNQ or PNQ better? So you like MNQ better? So where we have PNQ, we're going to now write MNQ. We're just going to write the same thing because they're equal. So our next step is going to be that first line again. The measure of angle MNP equals the measure of angle MNQ plus the measure of angle MNQ. Okay. Are you guys okay with that step so far? We just did direct substitution in. At this point, how many of the measures of angle MNQ do we have? We have 2. So we can rewrite that whole last one as the measure of angle MNP equals 2 times the measure of angle MNQ. Feels like a lot of steps, I know. Geometry is all about justifying what we're doing. So after this, we can now substitute in to solve. So which one do we know the measure of? Angle MNP, right? So we can now substitute that in. So we now have 74 degrees equals 2 times the measure of angle MNQ. How do I find the measure of angle MNQ? Divide by 2. Yep. So we end up with the measure. I'm going to write it over here so you can see it for the people in the back. The measure of angle MNQ equals 37 degrees. Because they are equal based on this line right here, what do we know the measure of angle PNQ has to be? It also has to be the same, yep. Let's write that again, Jenkins. PNQ also has to be 37 degrees. So our first step, just like our last one, is to draw on the picture of our angle and show what we know. So here we know that the angle of FAH is being bisected. How do I show if it's being bisected? What do I draw, Natalie?
The two little degree marks.
Yep, we're going to draw those 2 little arcs. We're going to put that little degree mark inside of it. And we show that those 2 are congruent. And then we also know that angle BAF's measure is 38 degrees. So the angle measure of BAF, this one right here, is 38 degrees. So our first step, big angle equals sum of parts. So what is my big angle? Yep, HAF equals, what are my parts? You raising your hand? Okay. Raj? HAB and our plus measure angle BAF. Thank you. What is our second step? Yep, Taylor?
Set the 2 smaller angles equal to each other.
Yep, we're going to set those 2 smaller angles equal to each other. Nice job, guys. Equals measure of angle BAF. So these are the same lines, but you drop off the first part, switch the plus sign to an equal sign. Now you get to pick which one you like better. In this one, it's having us find the measure of FAH, right? FAH, that's the big angle, and HAB. So which one do you like better, HAB or BAF? We'll go with BAF since no one has a preference. So we're going to write the measure of angle HAF equals, and now we rewrite it where it has the same thing written twice. The measure of angle BAF plus the measure of angle BAF. So we decided what we wanted to solve for. We substituted in. Now that we have that, we can rewrite that. How can I rewrite it? How many of those angles do we have? 2. So we can rewrite it as 2 times the measure of angle BAF. Okay. We know the measure of angle BAF. What is it? 38 degrees. Exactly right. We're going to substitute it in. 38 degrees. When we do that, what do we get? $76? Thank you. We get 76 degrees. So we did this one. We found HAF. We also want to find HAB. How do we find the measure of angle HAB? We use what we solved for here. We already set them equal to each other. So we know that it has to equal F or BAF. What was the measure of angle BAF? 38 degrees, yep. Which equals 38 degrees. Okay, so this is that part A, your final answers. After that, it says determine the type of angle FAH is. What type of angle is FAH? Is it acute, obtuse, right, straight? Yep. It's going to be acute because it's less than 90. Because 76 degrees is less than 90 degrees. First step, what do we write first? Our big angle. She's 100% correct. So let's go up to our first group. Can somebody tell me in the first group what our big angle is? Nunu or Naya? Which one's the big angle? You've got this. What are the letters on our big angle? What'd you say? WUT? Yep, so the measure of angle WUT equals the sum of its parts. So the measure of angle. Okay, can somebody else tell me the parts? Natalie? WUV. Oh, say it again.
WUV. I said
Oh, no, okay. No, I wasn't sure if I just messed you up, so I'm sorry. And then what was your other one?
VUT.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Let me write that so that V looks not like a U. Nice job. Okay, now what is our second step? Yep, we're going to set those second parts, the two smaller angles, equal to each other. So the measure of angle WUV equals the measure of angle VUT. Now you get to pick which one you like. VUT? Okay, so we're going to go here. The measure of angle WUT equals the measure of angle VUT plus the measure of angle VUT. Direct substitution. It also helps because we know the measure of angle VUT. How many VUTs do we have? We have 2, so we can rewrite that as the measure of angle WUT equals 2 times the measure of angle VUT. So the measure of angle WUT equals 2 times, what's my measure of VUT? Yep, 60 degrees. So that ends up being 120 degrees. I'm going to write that here so I write it very explicitly. Okay, based on this line up here, we know we can solve for the other one. If we know that VUT is 60 degrees, how much does the measure of angle WUT have to be? It also has to be 60 degrees. So if you were going to classify this angle here, WUT, what is it going to be? Acute, obtuse, right, straight. Yep, WUT. Obtuse, yep. Because it's bigger than 90 degrees and smaller than 180. On this one, we don't have to make the big angle and the small angles because we're not looking for the total measure of this angle. We just want to find the value of x. So if we know that GJ bisects angle FGH, what do we know about those two smaller angles? They are congruent, yep. So we have the measure of angle FGJ equals the measure, let me write that above, sorry. The measure of angle FGJ equals the measure of angle JGH. Our problem tells us what each of those equal. What is the measure of FGJ? Yep, 45 degrees. What is the measure of JGH? 6x minus 3. So again, we want to combine those like terms. What are our like terms? 3 and 45. So how do we combine those? We're going to add that 3 on both sides. You end up with 48 equals 6x. How do I get x by itself? Divide by 6. Okay, x equals 8. Nice job, everyone. Okay, our next one has the same labels as our last one. And since it's also being bisected, we know that FGJ has to equal JGH because it's being bisected. I'm going to draw a line here so we can keep the problem separated. JGH. What is the measure of angle FGJ? X plus 12. What is the measure of angle JGH? 55. How do I get x by itself? Subtract 12. And we're left with x equals 43 degrees.